What's up, guys? Rae Reinhartz, Astrologer. Welcome back. I know it's been a while. This special occasion is brought to you by the upcoming Lunar Eclipse that's going to be happening on January 10th, 2020. Now we're in 2020. Just a side note, I don't really think that solar eclipses per se are that important unless the locality is directed to you or aka me, because projection's a thing and that's kind of what I focus on. Anyway, so this upcoming lunar eclipse that will be happening on the 10th of January is going to have some epic aspects that are going to have some very, very prominent, that's putting it lightly, and eventful influences. So just for housekeeping, I'll go over a little bit of just facts about eclipses for people who might be new or just interesting information I find relevant, obviously. So, some basic facts about eclipses. Eclipses are like new or full moons on steroids and will impact any aspecting points that are within 4 degrees of it. I mean, you can do the 10 orb rule, but 4 degrees is primarily ideal. The effects will manifest as sort of a crisis, either realization of a problem or symptoms, or of a problem progressing, which could negatively impact the self or or any facets that the eclipse is influencing. Eclipses occur twice a year, 14 days in between, interpreted as malefic, prophesizing doom, catastrophic events, especially this one. And I think that's why I felt the need to really talk about this. Eclipses are triggering aspect. So it's not necessarily the dignity, meaning the sign that the eclipse will be in, which this one will be in Cancer, by the way, or the dignity or the influences of the eclipse itself, but what aspect patterns and energies have manifested and will play out. So anything that's aspecting this lunar eclipse, which it being in the sign of Cancer, I'm sure most people are aware of the huge stellium in Capricorn with Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn. We've had Pluto in Capricorn since 2008, which started the infamous Uranus-Pluto square, which has caused a lot of shit. And then when Saturn went into Capricorn as well in 2017, that just coupled in with making it more of a sociological. Well, I mean, there's always going to be influences either on an individual level or a collective level, but since Saturn has to do a lot with governments, authorities, and tradition, and once Saturn joined Pluto in this Capricorn quadrant, the unraveling of the establishment, the actual structure, because of all the chaos brought forth from the Uranus-Pluto square, is now manifesting once we hit the end of 2017. Individually, it causes internal transformation, psychically, psychologically, emotionally, and collectively, it's impacting physiological, sociological, environmental. So, Pluto has to do with volcanic activity, with also Uranus being in Taurus too. That has to do with unstable grounds. So more volcanic activity, more earthquakes, more catastrophic weather. That's the environmental. With their sociological again, Pluto conjunct with Saturn. We've been getting a taste of that for the last couple of years now since Saturn went into Capricorn. But now, since Jupiter just recently joined this conjunction, making it a stellium, Jupiter is a magnifying glass, which essentially has amplified any of the themes that have been transpiring because of the Pluto-Capricorn conjunction. So, keeping in mind with the malefic signatures, with eclipses, the influences, and it being something that is attributed to closure and forcing people to let go of past influences, or just, it's the equivalent of ripping the rug out from underneath someone. The elemental influence for this eclipse will be obviously water, since the dignity is Cancer, and emotions and security issues will be the theme. So that can be applied on a sociological, physiological, and obviously an emotional level. When it's talking about security issues, this could be emphasizing more of there being some sort of a feud of migrant crises. Also, other astrologers have mentioned something about, since Uranus and Taurus is infamous for like the Great Depression and everything that the United States went through back in the 1930s, that this could be a threat to people's social security, to people's pensions, etc., etc. All those kind of things can manifest. And the influence of an eclipse is aspecting planets will prolong the influence for 6 months or more. If the transit reactivates the eclipse influence through other aspects, it could add another 6 months to it. So instead of this being a one-day thing or the highlight of the month, eclipses directly influence trends throughout a year or longer, depending on the aspects and signatures going on. So again, emphasizing the Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter, those are all outer planets, generational planets that have substantial influence on long-term trends and sociological institutions and et cetera, and the development of society. So with this eclipse opposing those planets, and not only that, but I'm gonna highlight the aspects themselves here in a minute. It's very I would say out of any of the eclipse interpretations or readings I've ever done, this is probably going to be the most catastrophic, malefic, chaotic, eventful eclipse. Like, shit is hitting the fan. This is literally the Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn conjunction, or stellium, and Pluto's going to be on its south node as well, the perihelion. This has been something that astrologers, professional astrologers, have been worried about and have been sweating about for over a decade. There's been talks about this. So not only is this a huge transit event, just in modern day society, but with this eclipse creating not only an opposition to this stellium, but a grand cross, with also Uranus with an orb in that, this would be what I would consider the grand finale of any of the chaos that's been unfolded because of Uranus-Pluto square. So yeah, it's pretty huge. In all honesty, for me, I was looking at this eclipse as more on a personal, individual level, so I'm actually going to highlight some notes for people to apply this eclipse on an individual basis, because I'm so stuck in how this is going to impact me that I haven't really focused too much on the mundane stuff. That, and shit's been hitting the fan for a long time, and it gets really boring, or at least for me, to continue to talk about the same bullshit full circle all the time. Anyway, so if the energies of an eclipse are suppressed or ignored, so this huge energy that's forcing you to confront things, work through things, or perhaps go through something that is something that you're supposed to be doing. If you ignore it, then it has potential catastrophic associations that can manifest over time. So it's, yeah, explosive. It can be explosive. When I look at, hang tight for a second. Oh, 2020 would help. I was all prepared and everything. Nope, just kidding. Alright, so I'll insert the chart here. Alright, so what we're looking at here, you see this? We're in the last installment of the cardinal years. subperiods are divided by Saturn times, because Saturn is the timekeeper. So we have been in cardinal period since Saturn went to Capricorn, because that's a cardinal sign, back in 2017. We're reaching the last and final year of the cardinal climax. So at the start of this eclipse, it's no surprise that we have cardinals on the angles with that huge grand cross going on. So we have Eris and Uranus on the angle. Well, I mean, Uranus is a little far off, but, you know, I use medieval kind of associations, so to me it's pretty much the same shit. Then we have Juno on the descendant, and Juno is a midpoint that does have similar characteristics to Saturn. So when we have Saturn, a part of the stellium that's going on the midheaven in Capricorn, plus Juno is squaring it, that's like Saturn squaring Saturn, transit to radix. Transit radix to natal. So we have Saturn in this, we have Eris in this, we have Juno, which is Saturn, to Pluto and Jupiter. The nodes are in this as well. The moon, and other people don't use this with the Hades aspect as well, is conjunct with this eclipse. I can't even, I'm so overwhelmed. There's going to be so many potential scenarios that can happen. I could stay here all day and mouth off events that'll happen. There'll be continuing issues with revolutions in government. Like, the second French Revolution, well, if it's the second, another French Revolution is in progress. There's the Brexit thing going on for the EU. The EU is going to be toppled. There's all that feud between the citizens and the Chinese government going on. There's still obviously a refugee problem going on. It's pretty intense. I mean, basically, the silver lining in all of this is that, best case scenario, things like Brexit will happen. There will be more independence with nations. The people will revolt and take over. Old abusive patterns in government authorities or organizations will be destroyed and dismantled. That sort of thing. That's a good thing. I mean, at least from my perspective anyway, because I'm not a fan of big government or totalitarian sort of things. So, that's going to be a sociological trend in general. This does insinuate, with Eris being in the first house and Uranus being there too, that there will be a lot of violence or lone wolf kind of acts, attacking people, doing things of that sort, because we have this eclipse, the lunar eclipse happening in the sign of Cancer that has to do with home and family. So that could be attacks on the homeland or with family in general, or attacking people's homes, or destruction in people's homes, because then we can go back to the environmental factor with Pluto and Jupiter. And because if you do the medieval astrology of causation, with an aspect being the manifestation of an act, and then the effects being the opposition, when we look at Pluto and Saturn, and then the opposition being the moon, the malefic signature with the eclipse with the moon in Cancer, it could be some sort of attack or catastrophic thing happening to the family or the home or the mother or children. I mean, going into that too. So also too, one of my friends, colleagues online, was mentioning some of the influences that he picks up, which, I mean, I've seen this time and time again. There will be, suicides, murders, all that jazz. I mean, going into that, because especially with Pluto in opposition with the moon, that's an abusive aspect. And again, with us going with Eris and Uranus in the first house, that would mean the self or the individual, whoever it is in the scenario, will be inflicting some sort of abuse onto someone. Yeah. The fact that the moon and the Pluto and Saturn are all in the 10th house. That'll be the now house. A lot of these manifestations will happen right away. They won't be prolonged like into later into this year. Anyway, I mean, I could go on, but I'm gonna try to keep my videos down for once. I know I've been saying that for years, but I think I'm actually doing it now. Anyway, so let's go ahead and shift the direction to individual influences with this eclipse, because that's kind of why I'm fixated on it. And so I'm projecting, and I'm gonna just give some little tidbits of information for people who are looking at this eclipse and comparing it to their natal chart. They want to see how this will affect them. So a conjunction will trigger reflection and questions for every person. Natal to transit to natal. So this eclipse, if it was conjunct your sun, it would be, how can you shine, embrace your sun's archetype, and tap into your natural talents and abilities? If it's conjunct your moon, how can I be more empathic? Am I emotionally balanced? Are my needs being met? Do I feel loved, and do I have a sense of belonging? And if you have that going on and you don't address it, you're going to have some sort of huge like meltdown, by the way. So I would highly suggest that you take care of that. Then if you have this eclipse conjunct your Mercury, are you being heard? Are your thoughts being acknowledged? Is your narrative projected how you want it to be? Do you feel your point of view is being accepted? Then we look at Mars conjunct the eclipse. How can I assert myself? Am I proactive in my own pursuits? What actions have I been hesitant to take? Again, the full moon or new moon on steroids. Take action. This is something where people will feel this urgency to do something. Then we look at if Jupiter was conjunct the eclipse. Build on. It's time to be thinking, growing in knowledge, truth, and expanding my beliefs and mind. Then if you have Saturn conjunct this eclipse, obligations and reliability. Am I fulfilling my obligations? Should I delegate or surrender some responsibilities weighing overall that's weighing you down? Are there new responsibilities that take priority, and are you overdoing it? If you have Chiron conjunct with this eclipse, repressed wounds will surface. What is the source of this pain, and how can I resolve it? Also, Black Moon Lilith is currently in the sign of Pisces, and for this chart, actually, Black Moon Lilith is in the 12th house, which is a house that's usually in the dark for most people. So if you happen to have Chiron conjunct with this eclipse, and they have the Black Moon Lilith in the 12th house for this chart, definitely I don't even know if therapy will help you. I don't even know what to say about that. I'm more so even mentioning this to warn people around you, because you're going to be definitely unstable. Hopefully you don't do anything crazy. Good luck. Then we have if you have the eclipse conjunct your Uranus, says how can you feel liberated from norms or restrictions, channel defiance, and your inner rebel. And if you happen to have that, as well as Uranus being in the first house as well, this is definitely going to be this is what I would sum up as a midlife crisis. You know, technically your midlife crisis happens halfway between your Uranus return, which is when you're like 42. But anyway, that's irrelevant, kind of. If you have your Neptune conjunct, which you shouldn't, there shouldn't be anybody alive with Neptune in Cancer, so I'm just going to skip that one. If you have your Pluto conjunct, which, again, I don't think there's anybody alive with Pluto in Cancer. Maybe a couple of stragglers, because the boomers are Pluto and Leo people. There might be a couple, but they're not going to watch my videos, so I'm not even going to bother. If you have the eclipse conjunct your North Node, how can I fulfill my purpose? What skills, talents, behaviors are repressed, underdeveloped, or lacking that I need to achieve this? My personal mission. If you have this eclipse conjunct your Ascendant, how can I be noticed? What sort of impression am I making? What energy is suppressed by this mask I show to the world? if it's conjunct your descendant? How can I feel acceptance and belonging with others? What do I need to address with partnerships and marriage? If it's conjunct your midheaven, what is my contribution to society? What should I be focusing on, and what can I do to be on top? And then the eclipse conjunct the IC, which it happens to be conjunct the IC in this chart. What weaknesses plague my stability and well-being? Urgency to dig deep in repressed wounds and self-deception, resolve insecurities, and lead to cleansing. So that right there, the weaknesses plague my stability and well-being, is going to be a general theme for this because that's where the eclipse is in this chart. And that's all I care about, my notes. Anyway, personally for me, the reason why I felt motivated to do this and why I've been fixating on this eclipse, I've been going through a lot of quote-unquote spiritual awakening stuff, which I don't know how much more awake I can fucking be. But apparently I'm going to go through another round of it starting next week, and I am not looking forward to that. And just personally for me, there's some aspects that'll be happening that are going to amplify it, because again, remember, eclipses are triggers, and the aspects to them are more important, even if it's not, if you're going to look at it more on an individual level, the aspects directly involving the eclipse are important too. But if you're going to look at an eclipse, look at the other major chart signatures going on, especially if they're huge, like for my example, transit Neptune squaring my moon in Sagittarius is going to be the thing that's going to really challenge me for the next year and a half. And yeah, so anyway, I just had a brain fart. Oh yeah, so I've focused mainly on the mundane and sociological and even psychological manifestations of eclipses in recent years, but as I've learned through also reviewing some of my quote-unquote spiritual awakening things that I thought was mental illness initially, and looking back at some of the charts and aspects and realizing that eclipses happen right around that time frame with Neptune aspects, makes total sense. But the spiritual enlightenment or psychic abilities enhancing because of eclipses, that shit is real. That shit doesn't play around, and that's actually more what I'm focused on than the generalization or the mundane stuff. The mundane stuff will be important too, and I don't even want to think about the shitstorm going on, like in the real world, while I'm dealing with the shitstorm in my head thing. But anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Everybody, good luck. If anybody wants any 2020 calendars, I'm doing a deal right now. If you contact me, raereinhartz@gmail.com, $20 for your 2020 transit breakdown calendar. It's a PDF layout of each month, giving you any major aspects for your natal chart to the transit radix for the daily. So this would be a legit daily horoscope meant for you. 18 cents a day. Don't I sound like I'm totally selling myself really good this time, aren't I? Anyway, so I thought I'd do that. I did that as kind of a nice thing because I usually don't charge so little for those things. Anybody wants to contact me for usual astrology readings, reports, or anything like that, feel free to hit me up. You can email me at raereinhartz@gmail.com, or if you add me to Facebook, but I don't have that many people on Facebook anymore. Just email me. It's raereinhartz@gmail.com, all one word. If you have any questions, if you want to schedule a reading or anything like that, yeah. Otherwise, Godspeed, you guys.